1. Today is the day my frivolous actions have caught up to me. I am a college student attending classes at a university that's a considerable length away from home. Because of this, I fly home for the holiday breaks quite often. I'm writing this post on my way to the airport, where my past has unfortunately caught up with me. Earlier in the week, me and my girlfriend, both 19, went to the grocery store for some food to get us through the last week before break. Tortillas, cup ramen, lunch meat, the works. It had been a while since I'd had fruit that hadn't been made from the school cafeteria, so I decided that a carton of cotton candy grapes would be the fruit to satiate me. Mistake number 1. We bought the grapes on Sunday, and my girlfriend doesn't really like grapes that much, so I pretty much had the whole carton to myself, and a week to eat a perfectly normal amount of grapes. Monday rolls close. Not a single grape missing. Tuesday was no good either. Wednesday was a start, but only a handful or so had met their end. Thursday night, last night, would be the evening wherein me and my cluster of grapes would meet. My girlfriend and I had gotten back to her dorm, and we were putting on a movie. About halfway through it, I decided that I'm kind of hungry, which is when I remember, my grapes. I excitedly retrieve them and return to my spot on the bed next to my girlfriend. About a quarter of the carton is gone when I wonder aloud, do you think something bad happens if you eat too many of these? A short Google search later, and now we know that grapes are classified as laxatives. Uh-oh. We look at the amount I've already eaten and decide that, this is probably fine. I'm sure you know where this is going by now. A smarter man would have cut his losses and either waited till tomorrow, or just tossed the rest of them. Wasteful, I know, but the university makes you unplug all your appliances anyways, so they would have gone bad in the fridge regardless. Dear listener, I did not stop eating grapes. By the climax of the Muppets' Christmas Carol, I had successfully neutralized a carton of grapes, still blissfully unaware of what was to come. On the morning of the 15th, I woke up as usual. My love was snuggled warmly in bed next to me. All was well. Until it wasn't. I usually have to go pee about 15 to 20 minutes after I wake up, but today was different. I had to shit, and bad. Thinking that this was the only point this would matter that day, I shrugged it off and went about the rest of my tasks. It happens again, and again. I will spare you the rest of the past and bring you to the now. I've basically been shitting my brains out all day, and I'm quite fearful that this will carry over onto my flight. My guts feel horrible just sitting in this shuttle. I'll hustle through security and plant myself as near to a bathroom as I can once I get to my gate. Two. It started, as many stories do, with me feeling bored and impulsive. Deciding that I wanted to change out my ear-piercing jewelry for something in a different color. My piercing is pretty new, and in a fiddly fold of the ear, so I struggled just to get the barbell in. I knew this, and I've had trouble with the process before, so the hell I was about to get into was one of my own making. I got out my new set of little surgical steel screw balls adorned with dark purple stones, and a couple of pillars to help hold the piece still during the screwing process. And I wandered over to the bathroom mirror to get it done. The last time I did this, I cleverly put the stopper into the sink so that the tiny pieces wouldn't disappear into my Stygian abyss of the drain, but for some reason of hubris or laziness, I decided that this time it wasn't necessary, as I wouldn't be leaning quite so close to the mirror. Of course, I received divine punishment in the form of my barbell with one ball attached, popping out from between the jaws of my pillars and directly down the drain. I stood there for a minute, in sheer disbelief that things had gone wrong exactly the way they weren't supposed to, before deciding it would be too stupid and wasteful to lose my newly acquired steel ball, and my only barbell of this type. Off I went traipsing down the stairs to grab a screwdriver. Time to disassemble the sink. As I was unscrewing the drain from the water lock, some substance started extruding from the threads of the screw. The foul stuff was creamy and vaguely flesh-colored. And as I was about to grasp at the screws, something in my body stopped me. I can't do this without gloves, I thought. Luckily, I still had some nitrile gloves sitting on a dresser against the opposite wall, so I slipped on a pair. I took a deep breath. Into the grim dark of the drainpipe I go. I quickly realized it wasn't going to be enough to just reach down through the initial pipe with a pair of tweezers. The jewelry was nowhere to be seen, and I decided to check the water lock to see if it had stayed in there. If I put the pieces into a bucket as I unscrewed them, I would be able to shake them and hopefully shake out my little barbell. My horrors, however, have only just begun. Out from each newly disassembled component of the water lock came flooding the worst slop you can possibly imagine. I don't think there is a word in any human language for what I saw, but I am certain that in whatever language tyrannids speak, they have a word to describe its beauty. Picture every human bodily waste mixed together, interspersed with clumps of long hair and compacted bits of filmy goo shaped by the parts they'd been stuck in between. I was actively trying not to smell it. Ugh, corpses rot and decay. As the gunk flowed out from the poor, wretched, long, uncleaned pipes, chunks slapping to the floor beneath. I recalled that maybe a year ago, maybe two, I had drunkenly vomited in this sink. My gag reflex needed constant suppressing as I focused on my breathing and how it would not be happening through the nose. A small spark of triumph as a metallic plink sounded from the bucket. The jewelry! My joy quickly faded in favor of despair once I realized I had to reach my thinly gloved hand into the gelatinous mass and squish the congealed lumps between my fingers until I felt something hard. Thankfully, I didn't have to squish long before I retrieved the barbell and put it aside, safe in an empty cardboard container for now. Ugh, putrefaction! All I'd wanted was to change my jewelry, yet here I was, wallowing in unholy filth, forced to clean a sink cursed with years of human ejecta rotting inside. My partner came home to find me a moaning, sobbing mess, standing hunched in the bathroom with sink cabinet drawers and pipe parts strewn about. An ungodly stench in the air. Kind angel that he is, he helped reassemble the wretched construction as I frantically cleaned the rescued jewelry, and wailed about the horrors I'd seen and smelt, and how I didn't feel clean, no matter how many times I washed my hands. 3. Over the last month, I've been working on building myself a new office desk. Picky old me couldn't find a desk on Amazon I liked because it wasn't wide enough or it wasn't deep enough. So I decided to be handy and build myself a desk. After all, I took a woodworking class when I was in middle school, and that was just over 15 years ago, so I know what I'm doing. I start by going to my local hardware store and picking out 2 very nice-sized slabs of oak wood and bringing them home. I go on to sand each board on both sides and along the edges. Once I'm content with the smoothness, I proceed to stain each side of the board over 4 days, 1 day per each side of the board. I don't have a workbench and space is limited. After each board was finished being stained, I couldn't help but notice that one board was darker than the other. It was darker than I liked, so my brilliant idea was, sand off the stain! Now, as I mentioned, I don't have a workbench and my space is limited, because my brilliant idea is to lean the board against a wall and proceed to sand it down with my face mere inches from the board. No mask or ventilation system, just me in my basement. I got one side sanded to the point I liked, when I realized my nose was burning something fierce. Realizing I probably should not be breathing in the dust created, I continued on sanding, ensuring to breathe out instead of breathe in after each passing of my sander to the board. I went on to finish sanding both sides of the board and left the project alone for the remainder of the evening. I proceeded on with my evening with my wife when I noticed my nose continued to burn. I finally got the need to sneeze, and after sneezing, I noticed my snot was black. Immediately, I went and blew my nose repeatedly until eventually the stain and wood dust-coated snot became a regular clear color. I sit here, typing this, one day after this occurred. My nose still burns a bit, and I have just finished reading about lead and toxic chemicals in stains and polyurethane. I probably knocked a good number of years off my life. For a stupid desk, I was too stubborn to buy off Amazon. 4. So, long story short, I did this huge butter extraction that I was sure I'd never have the time to use, even half of it, before the expiration date, so I was willing to bake edibles for friends if they needed some. This one time my friend asked me for some peanut butter cookies for their bachelorette party, and I said, "Sure, no problem, milady. They're already in the oven." After that, I used like 4 times a layer of plastic film, some layers of aluminium foil, all for mitigating the aroma, and shoved them into my bag. Important to point out that I have a basset hound, who famously is known for their insane nose, and I own the house so I can do whatever attitude. Turned out she immediately knew where the cookies were. As I was about to leave the house, I went to the toilet for about 10 minutes, only to find out that my dog ripped the bag apart, chewed through all the layers, and ate like 30% of the cookies that were in there. The good thing is that I knew cannabis is potentially lethal for canines, so we immediately rushed to the vet. I might burn in hell for this, but I am absolutely sure during the whole voyage she was tripping balls. She was so relaxed and vibing in the car. Never have I ever seen her so easygoing and not contemplating every word I say. I felt like she was having a good time. Only to find out, an insane queue at the entrance. I already felt like shit, but I had to lie my way through saying that she ate a whole bar of chocolate. As we got to the vet, I had to whisper into his ear, it was not chocolate. The vet actually laughed when it all made sense considering the red-eyed beastie that was in front of him. He put her on an IV, gave some meds, and in about 2 hours told me that she's going to be fine, and I need to cuddle with her more this evening. As funny as this might sound from the side, I was very concerned and would do everything I can to prevent it from happening again. 5. Last night I took 75 milligrams of Unisum. I know, but I was desperate to sleep. When we got home from a family Christmas, because the previous night I got 2 hours of sleep, and just need to knock out and rest. However, my husband is going on a hunting trip this weekend and was leaving me his truck, so he needed my car keys, which were lost. So I got up to help him look after I was already almost asleep. That woke me up from the sleepiness of the Unisum I had taken about an hour prior. After we found them buried under wrapping paper trash from presents, I laid back down to hopefully get some sleep. But then the baby wakes up. My husband is taking a quick shower, so I do this feeding. Now in Texas, we have what's called cedar fever this time of year, and my God, is it horrible. I legitimately feel like I've got the flu and strep at the same time. So while I was prepping the bottle, I took 75 milligrams of Benadryl without thinking. I know this seems extreme, but I'm pissed, tired, and I promise you a regular dose isn't touching my cedar fever allergy. And I'm desperate to sleep, and not spend the night sneezing, swelling, itching, and struggling to breathe with my sore throat. I feed the baby, get him back to sleep, get back in bed, and about 20 minutes later I start feeling drowsy again, finally. I'm just about asleep when the baby wakes up again. My husband says he will change him and soothe him and do his feeding if I'd go make a bottle. I get to the kitchen. It's almost pitch black in the house, save for the Christmas tree lights on. So that created a low lighting effect in the kitchen. As I'm walking up to my fridge, I glance at something moving on my stove, and to my absolute horror, it's a giant-ass ball of wolf spiders. Now, if you aren't familiar with this particular brand of spider, they're crafted by a cruel god straight out of the 8th circle of hell. They're the size of fucking tarantulas. I know logically they are good boys who keep away the other unsavory creepy crawlers, and I am forever haunted by that damn poem from Tumblr, written in the point of view of a spider being killed instead of set outside by humans. So I typically leave them to their creepy devices in my garage. However, they are not welcome in my damn house, and definitely not welcome to form a fucked up ball shape like they're auditioning for a spider circus show in my stove. So I hurriedly flick on my kitchen lights, ready to scream, "Burn the house down," empty a clip into them, but instead, I am completely and utterly horrified when the ball from hell disappears as soon as the light turns on. What the fuck? This is when it clicked in my tired mom brain that I had astronomically, royally, horrifically, biblically messed up. I was fighting sleep on a higher than recommended dose of 2 antihistamines, and now they've kicked into deliriant mode. The Hat Man was coming. Now, when I was younger and in college, I had tried shrooms once and had a horrible time. So I knew what was happening to me, thankfully, and I could ground myself when the Hat Man and his army of spiders inevitably decided to show up. I made the bottle, quickly passed it off to my husband, and climbed into bed. I didn't say a word to him, because he's never done drugs in his life and doesn't drink, so I knew he would lose his absolute mind if I tell him that his normally responsible adult wife and mother of his 2 children was tripping absolute balls. The baby goes down again. Husband comes to bed. I close my eyes and spend about 45 minutes in hell as my brain decides to start visualizing, in extreme and honestly impressive detail, the faces of people morphing into the most horrific, distorted shapes. I'm doing my damnedest to keep my head here and trying to gaslight my brain into pretending that I do not see. And my husband starts snoring. He's in a deep sleep. The baby wakes up again. I go make a bottle, flipping all the lights on this time. Fuck you, spiders. And sit down to feed him with my phone flashlight on. The Hat Man is smoking a cig in the corner of my eye, and the spiders are crawling on my fingers. I start mentally pleading with a god I don't believe in that I will never take an antihistamine again if he'll just make this stop. The baby goes back to sleep. I go to my bathroom, throw up, chug water, pee, stare at myself in the mirror, trying to understand how I could mess up this bad, flip off the Hat Man, and make it back in bed. I finally fall asleep for about 6 hours of blissful, dreamless sleep. I feel completely normal today, just a bit groggy, dehydrated, humbled, and maybe traumatized. I grabbed my Benadryl out of the medicine cabinet and chucked it. Now, I'm not typically a judgmental person. I don't stick my nose up at those who use or have used drugs because raw-dogging life as an adult in this economy is hell. But those of you who like doing this, you are an insane person. A different breed. You need to be studied and maybe locked away from society because, holy shit, I am horrified you would choose to do this. But also slightly impressed and definitely scared of y'all. Respectfully. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Embarrassing Stories, episode 99. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please poke the like button, and if you'd like to get early access to the videos, support me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. And if you especially enjoyed the video, you can leave a tip by hitting the heart with the $sign in the middle and leaving the tip of your choice. You don't have to do that, but I do appreciate it. And thank you kindly if you have. Alright, I don't think we have any other business today, no shoutouts I believe, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, and this one comes from the Discord thanks to Newcomb, and that is, what's the strangest thing you turned into a toy as a kid? Like, they used fancy bookends to play with, because they thought they were neat looking. This is going to make me sound weird, but I think I've told it before, so, alright, judge away. I used to make paper coffins for action figures. I'd draw out a template, fold everything together and use tape to hold it together. I got quite good at it, and I used that to bury my action figures because they'd fallen in battle, and I couldn't just leave them there. It's disrespectful. Or I remember once I got, what was it? Oh yes, I had 2 sticks, and thanks high school, they taught me how to cut joints. So I cut a joint, and I turned it into basically a rudimentary nightstick. I then taped electrical tape, black electrical tape over that, so it would look the part. And using bamboo sticks, I then crafted a holder for it that I then attached to a wall. I don't know why my parents allowed me to do this, but they did. And I attached a wall, and it sat there for a while. This poorly made a poorly made nightstick in a holder. I did actually give myself a scar. I've got 2 scars in roughly the same position on each of my hands. And one of those, I think the one in my left hand, was when I was trimming. I was trimming the wood, or trimming the bamboo, something like that, and it slipped and it cut me. And it healed up okay, but you can still see the scar there. So that was my exciting adventure. That's what I did to entertain myself as a kid, so why don't you let me know some of your ideas in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.